Hey, homeschool moms. I hope it's a good day. If you just caught me over on Instagram Live, I was having a conversation with Diane Geerlings. She's from Geerlings Educational Therapy, and she addresses homeschool moms' concerns about their kids if the moms are wondering if their kids have a learning challenge, maybe dysgraphia, dyslexia. Sometimes she's dealing with kids that have ADHD. Sometimes there's kids with autism or on the autism spectrum. So if you're curious about learning more about those particular challenges and how to differentiate this from that, normal childhood developmental challenges and executive function challenges of the ADHD world or brain, then you should go check that out on Instagram. But I hope you're having a great day. Do you have a cup of coffee? Let's chat. First thing, one of my birthday gifts last week was this. Have you seen these kaleidoscopes? Where if you look through, you see these beautiful little plastic shapes, and as soon as you turn it, you get a different perspective. If you've worked with me in coaching, you know that I will pull out a kaleidoscope. In fact, I'll pull out this one. And so now I've got a second one. And as one of my girls said, on brand. Not that that's my ultimate goal, but one of my girls gave me a kaleidoscope on brand, in other words, my colors, and then another gal gave me another on brand water bottle. And so they know what I'm doing. I'm here. And actually one of them wants to chat with me. Anyways, I'm here and I'm with you. And this kaleidoscope, why did I pull out a kaleidoscope? Because I use this all the time to remind all of us that if we just shift that kaleidoscope just a little bit one direction or the other, you see everything, your family, your experience, your kids in a whole different light. And it just changes the form. So it's useful for us to get perspective and to shift our perspective. Sometimes to look through, look over our world or look at our world with different eyes. And that's what I hope I can do for you. So tomorrow, Wednesday, every Wednesday, 2:30 to 3:30 Pacific Standard Time, I am offering a first-year homeschool mom meet and greet. So if you have yet to meet a homeschool mom that's doing this homeschool thing, you're in your first year or you're about to enter into homeschooling, or you just have all these sorts of questions that you don't know who else to ask, I'm available for that. So if you want to join me, ask me for a Zoom link and we can have a conversation. In our homeschool mom room in the Patreon support group on Friday, I am having a conversation with any homeschool moms that are joining me from the Patreon support group to talk about my book. Can I find my book? I can always find my book because I've always got loads of copies of my book lurking around, holding up my computer. So I wrote a book 2018 and published it 2020. It is called Homeschool Mama Self-Care Nurturing the Nurturer. And I put that together in the fruit orchard where my chickens were pecking up my toes. And then in a couple years, after loads of editors and loads of, back work, I had it published with another homeschool mom publisher across the country. And 4 years later, she says she's really impressed that it keeps selling as quickly or as often as it is. And the thing is with this book, I wrote it really to me. It was the encouragements, the things that I learned over the course of my homeschool years, the things that mattered and that really helped to shift the needle to my homeschool mom satisfaction. And I've noticed that over the course of the last 3 years since I began formally coaching around the world, maybe 4 years actually, every topic that I speak to in here are topics that I talk about with homeschool moms all the time. All the time. I have so many conversation bits in there. I go back every once in a while to that book and I think to myself, I knew about that like way back. I was talking about that way back. And pretty much everything that I engage with homeschool parents now, I've had conversations with in this book. And so I thought it'd be really fun partly because it's easier for me in December, and December is such a busy month, but partly because I thought it'd be kind of fun to have a conversation about how I wrote the book and also how I put things together and what I learned about the actual back elements of publishing something and getting it out there into the world, and what the marketing realm is to actually get a book out into the world. Because it turns out, whether you have a friend who's a homeschool mom publisher, or whether you're doing it with Penguin Random House or any publisher whatsoever, it's actually a lot of work to try to figure out how to distribute it. And there's a whole thing around actually selling it. Like, writing a book is the easy part, even though it's not the easiest part, but it is the easy part. And then there is the whole editing thing. And then there is the whole marketing thing, which is like probably the biggest one, which theoretically is what I'm doing exactly right now. But you join me at the Homeschool Mom Room on Friday, and I'll talk all about that book. You can actually find it on Amazon, or if you're around these parts, you can also come over here. I've got a copy. Probably until tomorrow. I think it's tomorrow is the very last day on the Etsy shop for that Black Friday sale. I extended it until December 6th. So they're ridiculously low prices, 40% off. And you're not going to find lower prices to any of the journaling workbooks that I've designed all around the topics found in this book, and also all the topics that I talk about with other homeschool moms all the time. So if you're interested, you can find all sorts of really purposefully designed products or journaling workbooks that are intended for you in your homeschool mom life. Okay, so I have 2 questions today that I'm going to grapple with. And also, welcome to the group, everybody that is new to the group. It is always a pleasure to have you here. I do things a little differently in this homeschool mom group, or the mama support group. At least I like to think so. That I'm trying to get in behind the scenes and feel like I'm actually really with you. Because even though theoretically I'm not with you, I'm online in a Facebook group, I'm also sitting in the corner of my study in my home in the Pacific Northwest. I'm in British Columbia, Canada, in the mountains on my homestead. And if I could, I would have a cup of tea with you every week. We'd have a chat about the most important things, because that is how I roll. I like feeling like I'm genuinely with somebody or connecting to somebody. If you're in the support group, the Patreon support group, then you know that to be true. So first of all, I want to say hi to Noelle. So Noelle is telling me that she didn't actually start out wanting to homeschool. It just sort of happened. I'm wondering if that's like around the 2020 thing, because that sort of happened to a lot of people around 2020. We put our son in preschool for 2 months, but it didn't work out. We pulled him out and never looked back. 3 kids later, and we're in it for the long haul. Well, I think that answers my question. It wasn't 2020, unless you are really busy. So maybe, probably not. And you said it's challenging to balance marriage, homeschooling, and caring for my 81-year-old mom. It's a challenge at best. Yeah, girl, I get it. It's why I speak to the turn all your homeschool challenges into your homeschool charms. Because once upon a time, when I was trying to get away to have quiet time in my homeschool days, especially in the first few years, it just felt so overwhelming. All the energy and the voices and the demands and my expectations and all the voices, my voices trying to tell me that I needed to do one more thing. And so I decided to go to Starbucks every Wednesday night. On a Wednesday night, I would sit and write everything that came from my heart onto the paper. And it was my saving grace. It was the way that I felt like I kept my head above water. And so I very much identify with you speaking to it being challenging at best. I totally get it. And now that I'm at the end of my mothering journey, I've been, my youngest is 15, my oldest is 22. I've only got one kiddo at home now. I can see that even though it is definitely a challenge, and certain days more so than others, it is an incredible opportunity to create family memories and to connect and create deep relationships. It is a beautiful, beautiful life. So welcome to homeschooling. I think you've been doing this for a few years, I'm guessing, but you were sharing specifically about not starting out wanting to homeschool, Noelle. Yeah, me neither. Didn't even know it existed for years. My oldest was finishing grade 2. No, I think she was actually in grade 1 or going into maybe at the end of kindergarten. She was going to grade 1, and I discovered homeschooling on a lark and found a book at a book. I found a book at a bookshop, and this book called The Homeschooling Option fell in my lap. It was all about, is homeschooling right for you? I definitely thought it was not. And like, I just didn't identify as somebody that would homeschool. But I picked up the book within the week. I decided that homeschooling was for me because all the values that this author spoke to seemed like what I wanted for my family. So I decided, yep, we were going to homeschool. So I'm with you on that. I definitely did not start out wanting to homeschool. Didn't even know it existed. I actually share more of the details of that on my first episode to my Homeschool Mama Self-Care podcast, if you want to hear more. We put our son in preschool for 2 months, but it didn't work out. I would love to hear why it didn't work out. If you ever want to have a conversation about that, I can imagine, but I know we all have really special reasons for that. And you had shared it's challenging to balance marriage, relationships, homeschooling, and caring for 81-year-old mom. Yeah, it can be. And something that I feel like doesn't get spoken to or doesn't get addressed very often is the relationships that you have in your home that are not the child-parent relationships. So most people, it is, parent to parent, or it's a partner to partner relationship, unless it's not. But assuming that that is what you're referring to, I don't think we have a conversation about that challenge enough. The energy that is expended when you are in conflict with your partner or someone significant to you, it's so huge, and it just pulls your mental space towards the frustration that you're having, or trying to figure out, what should I do next, or what should I not do next, or I'm so angry, or I'm so sad, or I'm so disappointed, or all the really big feelings that you're having. It pulls you away from being present with your kids. Besides the fact that every single one of us are teaching our kids how to communicate, and we're teaching them unhealthy patterns of relating if we don't come up with a plan to address the challenges that we have with our partner. I know this from experience too. It's actually one part of the discussion that I have in the Building Boundaries group coaching program that will begin in January. When I talk about building boundaries, I don't mean just like, don't answer the phone when you're doing your homeschool day, although that's useful. Don't answer the phone. If you're wanting to be focused, just put the phone away, turn off the notifications, or leave the room. But when I'm talking about building boundaries, I can see the Wi-Fi is going in and out. I'm talking about you getting clear on who you are, so your identity. You getting clear on how you're showing up in your world. Are you really authentically you? Are you comfortable saying, this is who I really am. This is what I'm really all about. This is how I want to nurture me. These are the needs I have, and I'm going to address them. And also, and the one that we're speaking to right here about relationships is, what are the relational challenges that you need to address? You're never going to get that perfect, said everyone ever. No one has perfect relationships. But what right now is a thing that you should be addressing? Because whatever the energy expenditure is in being preoccupied with that marriage or partnering relationship challenge that you've got, it is influencing how you're showing up with your kids. Maybe you're shorter, like you're frustrated more quickly, or maybe you're just scattered more. Who knows? But there is definitely repercussions if you're having conflict, unresolved conflict. also, you're just teaching them to approach relationships in the future in a way that you don't want. And though we all do that, we all do, okay? Just like mothering, you're not mothering perfectly. It's not a thing. Also, having relationships with people, doing it perfectly, also not a thing. And though there be many amazing books out there with many amazing ideas, us humans don't make it happen perfectly. But we are called to being on a growth trajectory. I believe we're here for growth. That's all I got. That's all I can figure out for sure is we're here for growth. And so if we're here for growth, then we have to ask, what's the thing that we're being called to grow in our relationship right now? And every effort you put towards that, learning how to communicate more, healthfully with your partner will give you a whole lot more energy and happiness, and also help you to show your kids how to do relationships. So I encourage you to do that. So whether you do that through the group coaching program that's coming up in January, or whether you want to do one-on-one coaching, or you want to just explore this further, you can grab the Build Your Boundaries checklist, which I will make sure to include in the comment section down below, and you can start to explore that. I also have a Build Your Boundaries journaling workbook, which is one of those journals that I spoke to that's in Etsy and for sale, like 40% off until tomorrow. So what I would ask you is, given that you are having a challenge with all the different relationships and demands on your life, I'd ask you, what do you need right now? How would balance, or an ideal feeling of balance, let me say that differently. How do you want to feel? That word balance, I think, never happens. I don't know why we use it in homeschooling, or why we use it at all, because we never get to this like perfect place of balance. But there is something about the feeling of that word that we're trying to go for. And so what is the feeling of that word that you're trying to accomplish? Then that's where I would begin in coaching, is to go into let's talk about why it's not feeling as you want it to feel. And is there something that you could delete, or is there something that you could add, or is there a big element of, some relational element that we need to go down deep and discuss? So that's food for thought. And Noelle, welcome to the group. I'm so glad you're here. I also have a question from Shannon, and welcome to the group. You are super new. In fact, possibly this morning. So welcome to the group. You share that you've recently pulled your son, he's 14, from school, I'm assuming. He has not homeschooled before. Unfortunately, over the past few years, his education has been minimal. His school worked on what they refer to as pass the child through the system. So regardless of grade, etc., they just pass them on to the next year. The past few years have really taken a negative turn. We've been trying to get him on board for some time, and he's finally ready. Of course, now he's in grade 9, and though I've been looking into homeschooling the past few years, there are so many choices and methods. I guess at this point I was we hope to take a bit of a break, reintroducing with the hopes of bringing back the love of learning, and you're looking for ideas, support, and guidance. And you also share that you feel like your situation may be a little unique, maybe not. Thank you for sharing that. 14-year-old who is going to homeschool for the first time, is that how I understand it, Shannon? My youngest is 15, so I have a pretty solid point of reference as to where he's at right now, generally. So what I would ask you is, what is your end goal for his education? What's your end goal for him for the next few years? Typically, and I believe, did you share that you were in the same province as me? Maybe not. Okay, so assuming that your son is going to graduate before the end of grade 12, and he'll be about 18, which is pretty typical where I live. That would mean he's got about 4 years left. And what would you say is your end goal for his education? Then I would ask, what is his end goal for his education? Even if he doesn't have an answer for that, I would ask him, what do you hope to accomplish with homeschooling? Or what would you like to learn? Or what are your interests? Or how would you like to see your education proceed? What didn't work when you were in school, and what did work, and what would you like to see here? Maybe something similar, maybe something different at home versus school. I would ask him where he's intending to go, even though what I mean by intending to go is like post high school. What's his intention? I know there's a lot of time between now and then. And even though for those that have younger kids, they're probably like, not that much time. That's only 4 years. But I have noticed that very few of the kids out there that are asked the question, what are you going to do for the rest of your life, when they're in like grade 8, grade 9, they are not doing the same thing that they said they would in grade 12, let alone when they're 50. So whatever he's doing at this age, grade 9, 14, maybe that's grade 8, whatever that age is, he's probably not going to do whatever he's doing at the end of high school, but it will give him some, idea. It'll give you some idea and him some idea where he might want to focus. So if that means that he is a really academic kiddo, but he's been sort of lost or pushed through the system and he's not had a really strong focus in some area, then that would be a different storyline than say he's completely disinterested in everything. And so really this conversation, again, I can't speak to without speaking to you. If you'd like to book a conversation, if you'd like to consider coaching, you can ask me for a link and we can talk about that. I think it's really important for you to get clear on what you believe in education to be anyway, so that you can decide how you want to approach his next few years. And then, and this is the big one, that is not what the school does. I would ask him, and what is your view, or what is it that you want to accomplish? Because as a 14-year-old, if you go into homeschooling for the first time and say, okay, here's the plan, here's your day timer, here's the colored markers, and here are all the things you need to do by the end of the day, within a few months, you are not going to enjoy your life at home with him. And he is definitely not going to enjoy his homeschool life with you. It is going to be trouble. And he's at an age where he has a lot of agency, or at least in his head, he's individuating, which is a big word for meaning he's becoming his own person, which I'm sure you see. And because he's at that age, he needs a lot of bandwidth. He needs to have a lot of freedom to choose the things that matter to him. So that's why I ask you, what do you believe in education to be anyway? And get really clear on, what do you want to do with those 4 or 5 years with him? What matters to him? What could you be doing right now that would make him feel like he enjoyed his life again? That's what I would actually encourage you to do for the first little while. And that might very well be what you're intending to do when you say that, I guess at this point, we hope to take a bit of a break. Yeah, because why? Why do you want to take a break? I don't know, but I'm guessing the energy of going from something that really isn't working, hoping to shift it into a gear that maybe something really could work, means that you kind of want to just take a breather and reassess. Maybe just let it go for a bit, just like on a vacation where you get away and you just see your life differently. You get a different perspective. You look at it and say, why am I doing what I'm doing anyway? And that could be really valuable for you for the first few months. Getting out of school or being pulled out of school and deciding, how am I going to live my life now? What matters to me? There is a term for this, leaving school and moving into the homeschool realm, that we in the homeschool community have called deschooling over the last, I don't know, is it a decade old? I don't know how old this, oh, maybe it's longer than that, but this deschooling thing certainly wasn't familiar to me for more than a decade. And deschooling really just means coming away from unhelpful schooled mindsets. Because as you notice, and you notice this in your experience with your son, you were speaking to him just being pushed along. And I don't know what the repercussions of him being pushed along were. Could be so many possibilities, but whatever it was, it didn't serve him. And the thing about the system, and I won't go on a political rant, but at the end of the day, I don't believe the systems are set up for the individuals. They're set up so the systems can keep functioning. And then there's a bunch of people that think that they're joining the institution so they can help the individual child, except they end up being frustrated that they're not quite able to accomplish what they want because they're hand tied or limited because the system won't let them. We're in homeschool, which means we're not bringing school home. It's a really bad word, homeschool. We're allowing our kids to be educated at home. We do not have to bring a school into our home. In fact, if you want to enjoy it, please don't. You want to bring your child home and ask your child, how can we create a construct or an education? How can we help raise you up to become who you were meant to be, to live a meaningful life when you're 14 and now 15 and then 16 and 17 and 18 until whatever age you typically launch your kids. And then when they're at that launching age where they feel emotionally ready and mature to move into the adult world in an independent way, then what do you want to do? How do you want to gear your life? Do you want to start a business when you're 14? Because kids do, especially in the homeschool world. We are hyper entrepreneurial. We're very entrepreneurial. Or do you want to, focus on certain academic areas that you really love? Do a lot of reading, or do you want to learn woodworking, or do you want to learn random things that the school system doesn't assign as an educational pursuit, but is totally learning and is absolutely prepping a child to become a full-grown adult to do important, meaningful things later? So I would start there. I would say, who are you? What are you about? Where do you want to go? And then take a break, as deschooling encourages. In my Deschool Your Homeschool journaling workbook, also in that Etsy shop, I have an exercise called 1 Week to Clarity. It helps you get clearer on who your kiddo is, or your young man, who your kiddo is, what they're about, what they're naturally learning. It helps you address your unhelpful schooled mindsets so that you can get out of your child's way and allow them to really learn and grow. That's one way you could begin to tackle this deschooling element of your homeschool journey. You could also join me for the Deschool group coaching program, which will also begin in the middle of January. And what I'm going to be doing is I use that workbook. I have a Deschool course that's available online, and also a group coaching program. So over the course of, I can't remember if it's 6 or 8 weeks, we're going to go through the course, but have conversations about the topics that can help release you from those unhelpful schooled mindsets. So, you had shared that there are so many choices and methods. You've been looking into homeschooling these past few years. There's so many choices and methods. There really are. There's so many. There are so many. And there's so many beautiful ones. And there's so many things to learn, especially in the newer homeschool years when you're like, what am I doing? I'm taking this responsibility of my child's education. And it's not just you asking yourself, what are you doing? But everyone you know is saying, what are you doing? And so then you're having to address all the voices. What are you doing? Well, that's not working, so let's try something else. That's what you're doing. And of course, I can say to you, it's going to work. It's going to be great. Don't really know your story, so I don't want to speak like that. And also, this homeschool thing really can be a way for you to move into your deeper sense of child or purpose for your child, and also help them, as you were hoping, to have a love of learning. And to, you said, Yeah, you were saying to reintroduce the hopes of bringing back the love of learning. It really is possible. You really can move in that direction. There are so many possible ways to approach homeschooling. You can learn from all the different things. I have a podcast where I talk about various methods and different approaches. Of course, you're welcome to join me in the Homeschool Mom Room, and we can have conversations about the various different methods. And also, the thing that I would love to, the only word I can think of is imbue upon you is this. All of the methods are cool, and some of them are really fun, especially for mom, not necessarily for the kids, or certain kids, but not some kids. And some elements of the methods work and some of them don't. And sometimes they work great until they don't. And so all of them are cool, and they help us to learn about learning, and they help us to learn about kids and child development, and help us to learn about all the things. But at the end of the day, you're homeschooling one kid. Or 13 if you happen to be on here, or 12, whatever numbers of kids you have. But you are not probably homeschooling a total classroom of 25 or 30. Unless you are, then you should tell me. Because I'll stop making that joke. But you're homeschooling one kiddo. You're home educating one kiddo. And so your goal is to address what that child needs. And that child might not need a specific method or approach. Or maybe he does. And then you can go with that. But at the end of the day, it is the child's inner, their true person. You're helping to grow them up to become the person they were meant to be. So what do they need right now? And what do you think is valuable for them in their education right now? What's your long-term goal for their education? Whatever that is, then work backwards and say, okay, I want my child to grow up to communicate. Therefore, how do I want them to learn to communicate? Am I wanting them to learn how to make Twitter feeds? Am I wanting them to learn how to chat in front of a Facebook group? Do I want them to learn how to write a 3-point essay? Do I want them to learn how to speak with clarity? What is it my goal for learning to communicate? Then work backwards and say, is this something that I can include in these 4 years that you are able to have that kind of influence? And then also have him or ask him what matters to him so he is actually on board. And I can guarantee you, if you do those things and you pull back and you're not insistent that these are the 25 things we have to do before Christmas, he's going to love learning. You just have to step back, get out of his way so that he can love learning. Because I think, and maybe I didn't say this, but I really believe that we come into the world as learning animals. We're here to learn. That's what we do. And we only make it difficult for kids to learn when we tell them these are the things you have to learn at a certain time. These are the certain things that you have to learn. Instead, we can actually look at the specific child and say, how do you want to learn? What do you want to learn? And also you can include some things that you want them to learn too. But you want to start by first asking them, what did they want to learn? Well, I think that is about all that I want to speak to. I hope that I've been helpful in that and that I've addressed your thoughts. If I haven't, or if there's more that you want to chat about with me, you're welcome to connect with me. You're going to find the Zoom link down below if you ask me for that. And if there's any other resources that I can help in your journey, then I just say, hey, just reach out. Here I am. And Shannon and your kiddo, welcome to homeschooling. I hope you all have a great week, and we'll talk to you soon.